I mean, you can't lose with, the trio of Lazard, Cobb, and Lewis. I mean, what else you waiting for, A-Rod? Come on, man.
Welcome back to the Schlabcast. Andy, Jeff, and Caleb here talking NFL free agency. In our last video, we talked a little bit more about some quarterback signings. This time, we'll be delving into some other positional groups as well as some trades and some releases. But first, how are you guys both doing?
I'm doing great. Really happy that the season's actually underway. Usually when the combine finishes up, I start to, actually feel like, okay, football's back a little bit after the weird lull that February is.
Yeah, buddy. Super ready.
And just to preface, guys, this one will be more geared towards the AFC. We will have another NFC reaction show to follow. I think it wouldn't be right if we didn't start off with the Jets. And while they do not have Aaron Rodgers yet, it seems like all signs are leading that way. Aaron Rodgers actually said on Pat McAfee his intention is to play for the Jets, but nothing is finalized as of yet. I just checked the Vegas odds and it actually has been updated right now. It looks like the Jets are like fourth right now to win the Super Bowl at 10-1. So it looks like everybody thinks that it's going to happen. There's also some reports that Aaron Rodgers has been a little bit unhappy, having cited some possible like demands to sign his Packers teammates, which is maybe why it's taking a little bit longer. Some names like Lazard and Randall Cobb and even Mercedes Lewis.
I mean, you can't lose with, the trio of Lazard, Cobb, and Lewis. I mean, what else you waiting for, A-Rod? Come on, man.
And they did actually sign Lazard recently to like a 3-year deal. Just your guys' overall thoughts on that. They already have Garrett Wilson there. He looked great last year. They still have Elijah Moore. I know he had like a down year, but I blame a lot of that on Zach Wilson and just not getting a lot of targets. So I think the talent is there. So I don't really think a lot of these other moves are necessary. But what do you guys think about this whole situation?
I know he was saying at the end of the year that this was probably his last game in a Packers uniform, but I think that's definitely a good piece for Rodgers. He was kind of like a letdown in fantasy last year. I feel like he does a lot of things not on the stat sheet, but I don't know if he's like a good number one receiver for Rodgers. I think Rodgers really missed like a Devontae Adams last year, somebody that he can just like the Jordy Nelson days of just throwing it 50 yards and just having somebody make a ridiculous catch. They have a good run game at the Jets, so it could be good for Rodgers. I would assume he goes there after all this. There's no way he could go back to the Packers now. I guess he could. I don't know. What do you think, Caleb?
Oh, that would just be amazing if he did go back. Rodgers' best thing is situational in the moment football because he shines when he needs to make plays and do all those crazy things. Him being just a situational quarterback and everything, a little bit like Brady too. Having some guys that he's familiar with goes a long way because they know what he's looking to do. And when you have just, the reps and just years and years and years like Cobb does, that doesn't surprise me seeing him kind of follow, wherever he's seeing Rodgers' trajectory go. I think he's looking to set himself up and he's doing a good job with it. It is the Jets. I don't really know what their offensive line is like. He's kind of fragile. He takes one weird hit that's his collarbone for the whole season. We've seen that a couple of times. And if he gets in a little bit of a hole in terms of maybe down a couple games from 500, he gets pouty and that spreads. So the stars really need to align for success for him in New York. In the long run, I think he goes there. I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, and I think the longer it goes on, it puts this unnecessary pressure on the Jets. And I feel like their floor with him has to be minimum make the playoffs and win the division. You think so?
Yeah.
It's a tough division to go. It's just walk right into. There's still really competitive teams all up and down.
Got to play the Bills twice. Got to play Miami twice.
New England twice.
twice.
And even if New England's not great players wise, you still are scheming against Bill Belichick and you're going against some real adversity. You're not ever getting an easy game or something like that.
So we're in the AFC East right now, moving over just to the Patriots right now. One of their signings was Juju Smith-Schuster. They did let go of Jacoby Myers. My first initial reaction was actually not even football related. I was actually surprised that Juju would go to a place like the Patriots, just in the simple fact that there's not going to be any more TikTok dancing there.
Yeah.
Just curious what you guys' thoughts on that.
Well, maybe in a couple months we'll get like the interview from him where he's like, yeah, as soon as I signed, I got a phone call just saying, that's it. Cancel your account. So I did. They need a lot of help. Juju's a good vet. I don't think he takes away if that's the case. Like, I mean, what he's not downgrading their position at all. I think that's just let's say a B- grade.
Jacoby Myers throwing it backwards or whatever probably didn't sit well with Belichick, and he basically was like, yeah, get this guy off the team immediately. But I don't see how getting Juju's an upgrade from that. That guy's just as wild, or can be a head case. I don't know. I guess he did just win a Super Bowl, but I don't feel like he did anything on that Kansas City team like all year.
He's a good role player, and he's probably not going to be looked at as like the top dude. He's going to be a, wide receiver 3, play the slot. There's so many Jujus, we could say it. You could just replace him with like so many other guys. Like if it was Devontae Parker, like, yeah, he's good.
He's kind of like a Robert Woods type of guy to me. He's a good second or slot guy, but he's not going to be your main target.
They also signed James Robinson for the running back, so we'll see how that depth plays out, because I know they also have Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, who are both solid.
One would be hot, get cold. The other one, whatever, bounce back and forth. So they always like to have 2 or 3 running backs that they can swap in and out. Moving down to the Dolphins, they traded for Jalen Ramsey. Kind of want to say it's like overrated at this point. I don't feel like he really did much last year to stand out. Do we think he can get his career kind of back on track in Miami?
I think he's falling just more for his name, but for a 3rd-round pick and for a backup tight end, that's almost still like giving a bag of chips. And Miami is kind of known to make a lot of these splash moves, but they haven't always seemed to pan out. We'll see. Like we said, that's a tough division.
Is a 3rd-round cornerback, like obviously taking the price and like, everything that goes alongside that out of it. Is Ramsey as good as a 3rd-round cornerback and a backup tight end?
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
Yeah, we'll see what they do with him. They might end up building him up. He has a great year, and then they just ship him.
Also signed Mike White from the Jets.
Just one thing on Ramsey too. In this division, you need it. You need a good cornerback for each divisional opponent. But Mike White, former Dallas 5th-round pick, I believe, Mike White. We'll see what kind of happens with Tua and everything, but hopefully he's serviceable. I know he's with the Jets, right? He
took over after Wilson had that terrible game.
Yeah.
He came in and threw like 3 touchdowns right away, and they had a great game, and then he didn't really play any well after that.
You're going to hit gold every 5 or 6 games, but outside of that, game's a little fast for him.
I think it could be a camp battle between him and Tua, and obviously we'll see what happens with Tua and his health. Solid signing. I think they probably wanted somebody better, but nothing was really available.
Brady.
We'll see what happens with that. Maybe Brady comes back at the last second, but I think they had to get somebody that has started a couple games before, just in case the Tua situation happens again.
Absolutely. He's an injury away from starting, and with Tua, we know that is closer to likely than not. With Mike McDaniels, I like the fit better. He will provide him opportunities better than, say, he would have on the Jets. Moving over to the Bills, not too much news. They resigned and restructured a handful of pieces, I believe, including Stephon Diggs. Yeah. They did get Kyle Allen to replace Case Keenum as their backup quarterback.
He's a career backup. He's someone that can come in and learn your playbook and, be prepared for whatever comes up. And he's been around so long. He's seen every kind of defense, and he's, played against all these different players. And there's some benefit to having those guys. It's definitely better than just drafting like a, 4th or 5th round guy that's like unproven, that's coming from like a smaller D1 school or something. And then you're wasting a spot there that could really be used elsewhere.
Moving over to the AFC West. Starting with the Broncos, they did make a handful of signings. Now that Sean Payton's there, they signed guard Ben Powers to a big deal, and also Mike McGlinchey, tackle. Sean Payton had alluded to the fact that he really wanted to beef up the O-line in the run game, and that's something that he always had and was successful at. In the Saints, they added Jarrett Stidham from the Raiders. I didn't see that coming, as well as Samaje Perine, which I think was a little bit under the radar. Sean Payton, he likes to use two backs, so I see him having more of a role now, splitting time with Javonte Williams there in the backfield. You guys have any thoughts on any of those moves?
Stidham's a solid backup. Obviously, Wilson's the franchise guy there. I like them beefing up the line for sure. Makes sense. They're going to have to vastly improve the entire team to make a push. I didn't think they were any good last year. Obviously, Sean Payton is a huge upgrade, and offensive line guys will be a huge upgrade to help Russell. I think they're going to have to make their defense a little better too if they want to be in some of these games, if Wilson can't always play well. They're a big question mark in my head this year, going into this year.
If I were to place, standings for the West next year, I think the Broncos are still going to finish last. There are some nice pieces. I actually like Samaje Perine. He's a great player, so I think he definitely adds a little bit on that offensive side.
And then just one small thing to note, there's a rumor that they are listening to offers for all of their three wide receivers, including Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, and KJ Hamler. Maybe something happens later, free agency, or maybe in the draft.
I could definitely see them drafting someone. There's actually a pretty good wide receiver class this year. The more I was looking into it.
I think Sean Payton just wants to get his guys in there.
Yeah.
So Raiders, not too big of a surprise, I guess. Their GM now for the Raiders is from the Patriots, and they have Josh McDaniels, obviously. So bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo as their quarterback, pretty big move. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's a solid signing for them. Like we said before, not the sexiest name out there, but you pretty much know what you're going to get. And if he can stay healthy, I don't want to say would be an upgrade from Carr, but it's a nice change of scenery for the Raiders and Jimmy G to get out of that Niners dilemma, drama, whatever you want to call it. Start fresh here, get a couple of pieces. You got a great running back, got a great wide receiver, got Jacoby Myers now. See if they can make anything happen. I think they thought they were a contender last year and just didn't have a good year, mostly in part because of Carr having a regressed year. I think this is make or break for Josh McDaniels, though. If he can't put together something here, then there's no way they're going to keep giving that guy a chance to coach this team.
You need to look on because you have a lot of young players that are great that are going to start looking elsewhere that don't believe in that locker room and are going to start requesting trades and everything. And Josh Jacobs could be one of those. And you definitely want to build around him. And with Jimmy, if you can just hand the ball off more, that's going to keep him healthier. I think that's a pretty good signing for them. Not a huge improvement or anything, especially with all the injury questions, but good for the Raiders, just kind of getting that over and done with.
And just going back to Jacoby Myers really quickly, will we see him on the last play of the game for the Raiders?
I don't think so.
Yeah, probably not.
That's funny, though.
We have the Chargers. Actually, no, we do have some big notable news. Austin Eckler, their star running back, he requested a trade. Seems like they want to re-sign everybody, but one of their most valuable players. I think he deserves it, but he is a running back.
That guy was like their red zone machine last year. I mean, I had Herbert for fantasy, and I was just screaming every time because they'd get all the way down to the red zone or something, and then he just handed off, and Eckler scores every time. I think that guy's a huge asset to their team. They restructured Khalil Mack, Mike Williams, and Keenan just to get under the cap because they were $20 million over the cap. So I'm not sure if they have any money to give Eckler, but they were, I guess, in talks of extensions or something, and it didn't go well. And then Eckler said, let me talk to other teams. I think it'd be a huge mistake to let that guy go.
There are very few teams that have, top paying quarterback and top paying running back. Just don't really have both. You need Herbert. That is your guy. Unfortunately for Eckler, he falls to the wayside a little bit, especially with their cap situation. Having heard all that, usually when a guy requests a trade, like they have checked out of that franchise. So that probably means he's going to be going somewhere. And it's kind of interesting to think about where he might go to. Obviously, these teams know that if they talk to him, they're going to need to be putting out some money. So it is some of these teams that might have like a we don't know situation at quarterback or something, and might kind of shoot for the moon there a little bit.
I like what you said, Caleb, about, hey, we're going to have to pay one of these two guys quite a bit of money very soon. Is it worth it to let Eckler go to pay Herbert what we're going to have to pay him?
Yeah, you're going to have to pay him, especially since Daniel Jones just kind of
Yeah, 40 million. Yeah. So
if he's worth 40,
Herbert's got to be worth 50.
He's worth 90% of the salary cap then.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, the league knows that was a fluke.
I mean, we're talking about Geno Smith getting 35 a year.
Kind of bonkers. Yeah, these
dudes very interesting what's going to happen with the market after some of these newer, younger guys starting to need to get paid that we think are above the Daniel Jones, Geno Smith tier. Moving on to the Chiefs, Super Bowl chumps.
Boo.
They signed a tackle to replace Orlando Brown. They lost Juju. I don't really think that's a big hurt. Doesn't look like they've made that many other moves. They're probably mostly intact from the team they had last year. They have Kelsey and all those other guys under contract, I believe. So
yeah, run it back.
Obviously, they're the best team in the league. Hope they lose. Let's move on to the AFC North. Talk about the Browns a little bit. Got a safety, got a defensive end, got a defensive tackle. Do you know anything about these guys, Andy?
Okoronkwo is going to replace Jadeveon Clowney, who I believe they just released today. Not too much to say, I guess, just more depth and possibly some starters there.
Do we think this team is any good next year?
I think their time and their window came and went, and it was very fleeting.
And they're paying Deshaun all that money. I would not be surprised if these guys win 5 games next year. They had a good thing going with Jacoby Brissett. He was like playing totally fine because they're paying Deshaun all that money. And then Deshaun just kind of poops the rest of their year away.
And now Brissett is a free agent. And
so they're not going to be able to re-sign him. He could go anywhere and start tomorrow if he
probably doesn't want to go back. Yeah.
Somewhere that like actually needs somebody. Steelers or something.
Speaking of the Steelers, so they signed a couple linebackers, Landon Roberts and Cole Holcomb. They did release their other linebacker, Miles Jack. They always just seem to be like that's a position they always go after. And everybody they get always seems to be pretty productive. A notable name was Patrick Peterson, who signed, I believe, for 2 more years.
Steelers will always be close to 8-8 or whatever. Pretty much always know that their defense is going to be. I think it's more about what their offense can do.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett can take that step forward.
It's still the Bengals division, in my opinion. Moving on to the Ravens, though, still no news on Lamar Jackson. They did franchise him, the non-exclusive one, but I'm sure they're looking into other QBs. You know, maybe even they got to look at a Jacoby Brissett type of guy. Just in case.
I think it said that actually.
They don't want to have nothing just in case somebody comes in and pays to get Lamar.
They also released Calais Campbell, really solid veteran leader. I think that'll be a bigger loss than they think.
He's like the Lamar Jackson of the defense. They kind of ran under the radar last year for a while. So they had that really bad start to the year, and then Lamar got hurt and they were kind of just all over the place. A lot of bad loss at the very end where they would like be up 2 touchdowns or something and then end up losing.
I think they lost to the Bills right at the end. I think they lost to the Steelers in one of the games right at the end.
Like Dolphins, I want to say.
Yeah, like 10 seconds or less.
And like some of those, they had like 2-3 touchdown leads and ended up blowing it. We'll see if they have another year like that. Be interesting to see if Harbaugh is still safe.
Bengals, not too much news. I want to say kind of similar to the Chiefs. However, they did lose both starting safeties, Jesse Bates to the Falcons and Von Bell, I believe, to the Panthers. Just somewhere where they're going to need to beef up that secondary a little bit.
Maybe look to the draft. We'll see.
I mean, they're pretty stacked. They just need to keep everything together. I really like their coach. I think he's great. I think he's really kind of put a new filter on that franchise after all those Marvin Jones years.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of snap them out of the haze that they were in with Marvin Lewis and Andy Dalton. Those guys just went to the playoffs like every year and just never won a game. And now instantly, like this guy comes in, changes it. Burrow, we know he's a winner. They were right there in that other game in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, against the Chiefs.
Definitely their division to lose. And save the best for last, the South.
Yeah, not much news for the Titans or the Jaguars. The Jaguars said that their GM said that they wanted to build through the draft this year. Colts also, they released Matt Ryan.
No surprise there,
I
really.
guess,
I mean,
yeah.
I wouldn't, they might draft a quarterback, to be honest. They got that new coach, right? The Eagles guy. So I feel like they're going to want to try to rebuild from what they had last year. Everyone thought they were going to win 8 or 9 games and they won 4. Titans, I know they were talking about maybe some people were talking about trading for Derrick Henry, although that hasn't happened yet. I feel like they'd be wild to let that guy go. He's like their whole team. Houston for last. You saved Texans for me.
Yeah, I wanted to let you have the floor for that one.
Yeah. I like the Case Keenum signing. Very solid veteran. I think could start if they want to. They're definitely going to draft a quarterback, I would say, with the second overall pick. It just depends on which one is still there. I think they're going to take one and then probably take that battle to camp. Maybe the rookie guy flashes well and gets a start. I like this Robert Woods signing, a solid vet. I feel like he was kind of just lost in the mix with Tennessee. Jimmy Ward's good player. Shaq Mason's good guard. They definitely need some O-line help. They definitely need a QB. They have a young defensive core. D'Amico Ryan's new head coach. They have a lot of draft capital this year and next. Hopefully they can add a lot of good pieces.
The Jimmy Ward one, especially just because D'Amico Ryan's bringing him over from San Francisco. He will be a good leader.
Yeah, I think having Case Keenum for whatever young quarterback comes in is a big help because he's had like some serious postseason success. Whoever is coming in to play alongside of him saw him with that, miracle Minneapolis play. So
yeah,
I would think Bryce Young's picked first, which if Houston stays at 2 and they decide we're going next, CJ Stroud would be my next pick for quarterback. Just as like a NFL prospect, he looks more to the fit than Bryce Young. Bryce just a little undersized. Stroud would be awesome, and having Keenum next to him would be and if he sits for a year, that's actually better for him in my opinion.
Yeah, Case Keenum would be a great guy to learn from. That guy's played with a ton of people in a ton of different places. Not bummed to miss out on the Jimmy G.
Since we got a second, is there anyone just as a little sneak peek that you'd want to draft first? Did anyone catch your eye, or if you not look that far into who you'd want for number 2?
There's a possibility that 4 or 5 of them could all be drafted in the first round. I like Bryce Young. I like Stroud. I don't know enough about the other guy to make a call right now. But if like Young is their guy and he goes, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to fade down a little bit and just take another guy that falls their way, unless they really love one of these other guys. Because there's no way that Carolina doesn't trade up to that spot not to take a quarterback.
I have seen rumors that they said that they could possibly still trade out. I don't know how likely that is.
Even just if it's a few spots, not even out of the top 10. Like the Bears didn't even leave the top 10, and they got a ton of stuff. This guy's trying to rebuild the team after Bill O'Brien basically threw it in the dumpsters. If he can get anything just to move down 5 or 6 spots, then he'll take it, I'm sure. And they can still get one of these quarterbacks,
Yeah, right now it looks like the betting odds has Stroud, I think, first as of now, and then Bryce Young, and then Richardson.
Maybe Carolina just really likes Stroud too, and then Bryce Young falls to them, and they're happy with that. So that could happen too. When's the last time we've seen a QB go back to back 1 and 2? I was thinking like Andrew Luck, RG3 days, but there's got to be.
Jared Goff, Carson Wentz is definitely one.
Okay.
But I'm sure there's even one more recent than that, possibly.
There, like the Mac Jones, Zach Wilson draft, there was a lot of guys taken pretty early. But I don't know if it was 1 and 2.
The Tua and Herbert, that was like top 5.
Yeah.
2021 draft was Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and then Trey Lance.
Wow. Zach Wilson went 2nd overall.
Yeah, what a bunch of idiots.
Don't draft people rarely does it happen, but save it, right? Like, don't draft people from schools that don't make any sense. Like, Zach Wilson went to BYU. They're not playing anyone good. Like, they might get like 1 game against Notre Dame or something in his career.
Yeah.
But, God, what are you thinking? And then you have Clemson with Trevor Lawrence. and that is great. And then Trey Lance, North Dakota State.
Yeah,
Like, come on, guys.
Competition matters.
absolutely.
Afterwards, you get down to the 11th pick of that draft is Justin Fields. I mean, Mac Jones, even Alabama doesn't have a great quarterback history, but still, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, Justin Fields at least
that-
played in the national championship and like had some real opponents and things like that.
playing
Like,
against the best defenders in college football, at least
Yeah.
still week in, week
Like,
out. But
you know.
BYU, come on.
yeah.
That's why I really like CJ Stroud, because he played really well. I think his last game was against Georgia, and he had a really great game. So if you can do well against that defense, I feel
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
you could do
Yeah.
pretty well in the NFL.
Look at
Yeah,
what that team did to TCU. Like, oh my God. That was just insane. It was 7-7 at one point, and then it was like 42-7. I looked down for 1 second. You look up, it's like 37-7. Like, oh my God.
I felt a slight bit of imposter syndrome last season when Cincy was in the at least in
Final
the
Four. Yeah.
playoff, and they had put up a respectable game, but TCU did not belong.
No.
They got by their first game, but man, that was
They need to go to that 18 playoff
that
pretty
was
quickly.
I mean, Georgia was kind of unstoppable at that moment, but still, that was something else.
Well, I think we touched on all the AFC free agency pretty much. We'll do NFC next time. Live long and Schlabcast.
As they always say,
Shaba.
Shaba.
Thanks for tuning in to the Schlabcast, everybody. We'll see you next time.